Hey, let's talk about how quickly we should give up on rookies in Dynasty and who's crossing those thresholds right now in 2022.
Do you have the time to listen to me grind? Take down the film watchers and nerds all at once.
Over 70% of top 12 wide receiver breakouts, so players that finish inside the top 12 in PPR scoring for the first time, have finished inside the top 36 before they break out into the top 12. Now, 64% of all top 12 breakouts have happened by year 3. So if you're looking at a fourth year player and they don't have a top 12 breakout season already on their record, they're in a smaller hit rate group. Second and third year breakouts are the most common, and that's whether you're looking at top 12 or top 24 or even top 36 breakout seasons. So the majority of breakouts have already broken out at lower thresholds before they actually break out at higher thresholds. But not always. Remember that Davante Adams took 4 years to really break any of those planes and has been one of the better breakouts or better fantasy assets since he broke out. Devontae Parker also broke out into the top 24 for the first time in his 4th year and hasn't been one of the best breakouts ever. Most later breakouts end up not producing as many good fantasy seasons after that point. So the longer it takes them to break out, the less likely they are to be Davante Adams versus Devontae Parker. So there are exceptions, and that brings us back to the slowly point. Never want to drop a rookie or a young player just to drop them. There is always a window of time, there is always a chance that their value rises even if they don't break out for a little while. What can we learn about them during the rookie season? Let's find out. The rookie year is the least likely that a player finishes inside the top 36, yet might be part of that group of players that we actually want in fantasy football. So 60% of players who go on to have a top 24 season or multiple top 24 seasons or greater have a top 36 season in their rookie season. That's actually the lowest group of any career year. It's also worth noting, however, before we dig into the weekly data, that we kind of know it when we see it. About 94% of players since DLF has been tracking ADP who fell by more than a round in their sophomore draft ADP went on to have no top 24 seasons or better after that point. The only exception that comes to mind is actually Tyler Boyd, who dropped by 10 rounds for no particular reason that I can figure out. He did have a terrible second year, actually, because of the return of AJ Green, but then broke out in his third year and continued to be a fantasy relevant season even this year. So most players know it when they see it. So that gap between the 60 and the 80% of players who go on to have top 12 and top 24 seasons isn't there, but we're going to have to get earlier than waiting for the first season to finish. But again, be cautious. So what I did is I went down and broke down rookie seasons week by week and looked at the average of rookie players by the end of their first season who went on to have 2 or more top 24 seasons or better. In rookie seasons, players who went on to be on that list of players we most want to roster in fantasy football average about 10 points per game throughout their rookie season and average about a 16% target share. So those are 2 good averages we can use to benchmark whether a player is going above or below the average of hits. Again, it's an average, so there's a little fallacy in there. So how quickly through a player's rookie season are players starting to average over those benchmarks? By week 4 or 5, about 50% of the group who are going to go on to be those players are averaging over a 10 points per game threshold and over a 16% target share. That's really early in a season. A lot of this is going to be best gauged with good priors. Now, good priors are relative. We don't know if our priors are good in advance, but your rookie evaluation and what you thought of them coming into the NFL can often guide you in the right direction. For example, some people still like Sky Moore right now, although his value is still definitely going to drop. I was definitely starting to say trade him away or get out if you can by week 4 or 5 this year based on the way his rookie season was going, but that's because I combined it with my rookie profile of him where I was lower than the average in ADP this offseason. Alright, by week 9 or 10, about 65% of the players we're actually hunting are over 10 points per game and over a 16% target share. So a couple of weeks ago, we can know with relative certainty that we know as much about most of these players as we could possibly hope to know. So even if we wait to week 9, we might get the majority of the group right and still find an edge over most of our league mates. So if you don't want to get aggressive by judging by week 4 or 5, you can wait until week 9 and 10 to be absolutely certain, and then the likes of Christian Watson and Treylon Burks, who started to go off over the last few weeks, still enter your sample size, and you're not going to miss some of those later breakouts. It's also really interesting that there's a dip in production, or the percentage of players hitting over those thresholds, between weeks 5 and 9. Don't know if you noticed that in the table. I don't know right now if that's just noise in the data or the fallacy of the average showing up, because again, there's not a lot of research done on this. There's a lot of different ways to dig down into this data. We're really on the fringes here. So how actionable is that information? Well, another piece of information that you should know is that the rookie wide receivers, in fact rookies in general, are the only consistent group to always average a higher points per game in the second half of the season compared to the first half of the season. On average, rookies only play about 10 games in their rookie season. So most rookies don't play 16 games. So when we say by week 9 or 10, most players won't have played 10 games through those first 9 and 10 weeks. I'm not doing a montage though. So we look on a game by game basis. Instead of looking week by week, look at the number of games a player has played and whether they're over or under our points per game and target share threshold. 45% of players have actually gone over our thresholds in points per game and target share of 10 points per game and 16% target share by week 5, by game 5. By the time they've played their 5th game, about 60 to 65% of them are over those two averages by the 11th game they play. We only really get to a full certainty of 80%, a really impressive number compared to the average that hit after finishing inside the top 36 throughout their first rookie season, by week 19, and that's specifically in target share. Interestingly enough, points per game lags behind target share after we get outside those first 10 games. So ultimately the answer is we should give up on rookies slowly. But if a player is healthy and available or able to earn opportunity in his rookie season, then I think by week 4 or 5 we can start making decisions if we're willing to assume our priors were good, our rookie evaluations are good, which I tend to be. But I play in leagues where it pays to be aggressive because everyone in there is smarter and knows more than me about football. At the same time, it's probably better to wait to week 9 or 10, or even better, wait till you see them play the 10th game of their NFL career. But wait, there's one more thing we have to do, right? We have to look at who's hitting these averages right now through the first 2 years of their career, and who stands out to be more likely to be part of the group of players who are actually hunting for the future of fantasy football. I've removed players who already have top 12 seasons, or players that we already know are good and are already drafted in the first 5 rounds of most Dynasty startups right now. Before we look, I want to tell you that you can find all of this data on my pinned tweet. It's free. If you have any questions about any of my notations on this list, feel free to ask in the comments. I think there are clearly 3 separate groups. The top group of players actually compare very well to the historical examples of the players who went on to have the most fantasy relevant seasons. There's a mid group of very interesting players who are all over that threshold, at least in target share, and then a lower tier group that I think are interesting, and a couple of rookies are in that group and still have a few more weeks to actually improve their comparison to those historical averages we were talking about. And so far I'm a little bit more skeptical of them. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thanks for checking out the video, and here's the list.